Top of the morning to yees. So right here is the holzfforma g366, which is the steel MS361 clone. I've torn it all down. I've got some dyed plastics. Ooh, Kenny Wayne Shepherd, blue on black. Yeah. So anyways, I got some parts on order. I'm considering ceramic bearings for the bottom end on this thing, but I haven't made up my mind yet whether or not I'm going to use them at all, because I know that people have had some failures. Please, if you know anything about that, put stuff in the comments. Let me know your experience. Dominant bearing dominant saws seems to be the place to purchase them. There's some other options too, getting them custom made, and send them my bearings and they put little ceramic balls in there. But I might just end up going with OEM. Anyways, it's an ongoing battle inside my head, and I know that this saw is going to have multiple iterations of it anyways, so I was like, you know what, we're going to go right in, jump right in and do the first iteration, which the first iteration for this saw is going to be just a basic port job. Nothing else. Well, I mean, muffler mod, of course, but maybe a timing advance, maybe. We'll see. Do these things need a timing advance? Anything that you guys know and can pass on in the comments, please do. I'm coming at this completely fresh. So, first thing that I noticed with the teardown of this thing, it was immediate. These things are so similar to the Poland high tops. I mean, it's absurd how similar they are. The way the gas tank goes on, where the coil is, everything about it, it just really makes me think that I'm working on one of the Poland high tops. So we're talking the Poland 330, the Poland 335, Poland 3750, the Poland Super 380. It's extremely similar. The one glaring difference that's really big that you can't get away from is this has an inboard clutch. The Polands have an outboard clutch. So as close as they may be, wouldn't be able to swap in this crank into a Poland, or at least not with ease, because that right there is going to be a different setup. But I'll check, the cylinder. Well, even if the cylinder did line up, this is a 34 millimeter stroke, and the Poland is 32 millimeter stroke. So, anyways, but on with important business. So, first thing I did and noticed once I got it here is I started rotating. Let's see if you can hear it. Oh, well. There, you can still hear it. So, that is out. It's just not completely seated. Now it's completely seated. So, that's your decomp valve. So, I was turning it around and I was hearing air leaking. I said, is that thing leaking? And I messed with it and I got it to stop leaking. But you kind of got to mess with it, kind of. Now, when it's running, you may not notice it, may be nothing. But one thing is for sure is immediately, we ain't having none of that. Goodbye to you, piece of crap. Those things are known to leak. And if you don't need one, I would highly recommend you tossing it immediately. Where I am so junky. A lot of people want to ask about these ratchet scrinches and if they work on spark plugs. I know that some saws have deep sockets inset. With those, yeah, probably wouldn't work. there you have it. There's my answer. I don't know if that's an answer or not. So this is the way I set up my digital angle finder from Joe Harkness. This is, I think it's, I don't know what his website's called, but go to YouTube and look up Dino Joe if you don't already know him, which surely you do. But you look up Dino Joe, and in his About section, you'll find a website, and you can purchase these from Joe. Joe's a good guy. But I find what it's easiest to go in there and do top dead center as I can find it, like this. Just, you know, looking at the piston, I get close to top dead center, and then I put this on right side up and lock it down. There we go. Some saws are more tricky than others, you know. But then I go with my zip tie. I just had it. There it is. I put my zip tie in and I rotate the piston backwards. I got the zip tie right in the center of the intake. Right there. And then I hold it in place. I reset. I zero out my gauge. Then I go all the way forward. Boom, I'm hitting on the zip tie again. And I look, it says 137.6. I take 137.6 and divide it in half. My phone is actually being utilized to record this, so I can't get it. So let's see, fast math, here we go. 130, half of that is 65, right? So you got 7.6. What is half of that? 7.6 is 3.5, 3.8. So 65, 3.8, 68.8 should be half of 137.6. So 68.8 is where I'm going to go. Ooh, too far. There we are. Zero it out. And that is our top dead center. To check and be sure that I have top dead center, I'm looking directly at my intake where the bottom of the piston meets the bottom of the intake. I'm at 73.1. I spin it all the way around, and now I'm doing this by eye. This time I'm going to be off by a little bit, but 74. 73.4. Yeah, that's probably got it. So there you have it. So we got our timing numbers right there. $74. I'm back to 74. So we got our little handy dandy black book. It's handy dandy only if you know where it's at. There it is. So we jump in, we make a new page, and we title it Kenny Wayne Shepherd. All right. right, intake opens. We're going to go with 74. Exhaust opens. Transfers open. Let's get the exhaust. The way I get the exhaust is I go in through the exhaust with my light. I look for a solid ray of light, like a good one. Not just the light that's barely peeking through, but you know, a decent little sliver of light. And we're at 101.5. And then the transfers, I go in either through the spark plug hole, or if I'm lucky enough on this one, I got that the compression release hole. And I go until they start to open and peek out at me. And we're looking at 132.7. What the hell? That can't be right. But I believe it is. Jeez, that's terrible. 132.7 is what I'm going with. If you have never done this before, or if you are pretty new, you know, inexperienced with getting your numbers and porting a saw and everything, I can't say this enough. I'm guilty of it. Tons of other YouTubers are guilty of it. And we're the ones that you're learning from almost exclusively. Maybe there's some of you that have people and friends that you can go and learn from them directly, but most of us learn off of YouTube at this point. But what I want to say is it is not an exact science. Sure, some people are better than others. Absolutely. However, I'll take a reading myself and get 105, and then read it again and get 106. So if you think, well, I'm doing something wrong, why am I getting different readings? You're doing things with the naked eye, and you're like, hey, and it, a 10,000th of an inch makes a difference. So it's not an exact science, but whenever you do it enough, you learn where the ins and outs are and how to best circumvent the situation. And so these numbers are solid. We're at 74 on the intake, exhaust is 101.5, and the transfers are 132.7, which is ridiculous. It has 30 degrees of blowdown. That's stupid. The saw's got a 34 millimeter stroke, and I don't know. That's crazy. I have seen stupid numbers like that before, and it was on a Chinese cylinder. So right off the bat, if I just simply went in there and raised those transfers, you'd probably see this thing be way better. But 74 on the intake, that's not too bad. You know, we would probably want it to be 78 or so, maybe even 80. But that number 74 versus the 132, that gives us 26 plus 32, 28, plus 58 degrees of crankcase pressure. 58 degrees of crankcase pressure is a lot. And it's just not needed. That's wasted time that we could actually be putting fuel into the combustion chamber. You know, time. You want to look at time. That time that is being wasted on crankcase pressure needs to be spent on delivering the fuel up above the piston so that we can smash it and make a big explosion. So that's enough for this video. That's just the numbers reading, and I'll get into this thing and decide what I'm actually going to do. I will say right off the bat that since I have this OEM crankshaft, it seems nice and small and tidy to me, which tells me it's probably got a nice and small, tidy bottom end crankcase. And so it probably only needs 37 degrees of crankcase pressure. You know, so that means that those transfers could get lifted to the moon. You know, you could lift those transfers like 20 degrees. So as it is, what we do, we had 58 degrees of crankcase pressure, right? But you could probably literally get by with about 38 degrees of crankcase pressure, maybe even less. And so you would be moving those transfers 20 full degrees or more. And this is one of the problems that you come into with a Chinese cylinder. Whenever the transfers aren't close to perfect, then that means you have to move them a lot. And when you have to move them a lot, you're changing velocities, because if that upper transfer goes from really little to really big, then you're going from to, and that screws up with your velocities. And so it's always a balance. What can you do and everything. I think on this one right here, I'll probably well, we'll machine it. Let's do that while we're here. We gotta check and see what the oh, all my tools are, everything's in a mess, guys. I gotta find my calipers. We gotta check the squish band. When you're checking the squish band, stay to the left and or right of the piston. That way the piston doesn't rock back and forth. You get a better reading. So now I just gotta find my calipers. There we go. Forty thousandths. So we got 40 thousandths of an inch on the squish. Let's write that down real quick. For everybody out there without a lathe and stuff, that's really good, because you know what? Let's just go ahead and so what people without a lathe would tend to do is simply remove the gasket the gasket reads at 19 thousandths of an inch. So without this gasket, you're going to get squish readings of close to 20 thousandths right there, right out the gate, which is nice, right? You're like, oh, there you go. I got my squish reading, and it's 20 thousandths just by removing the gasket. I have no reason to machine this cylinder. Well, the combustion chamber, not bad at all. not bad at all. But we're going to gain compression by cutting that squish band. And then once you cut the squish band, you still have to machine the base to get it down. So this is where builders who machine, I gotta say, I mean, without machining, you can get good power, you know, especially depending on the model, you know, of saw and everything. But if you want to get real power, you got to machine that cylinder. Plus, we want to drop it down lower so the intake floor will lower. Anyways, just talking it through with you. That's all. And I guess we'll move on. The cylinder doesn't look bad. Ports could be chamfered, you know, just straight out the gate right there. Be nice to chamfer those ports. Those did get chamfered. Man, they got chamfered very poorly. I don't know. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. And, you know, and I've learned a lot of people judge porters by the quality of their actual smooth ports and stuff like that. If one of y'all saw my ports, you would probably be blown away and think, oh my God. One of the big things that people say is, looked like a 5-year-old with a Dremel ported it. You know? But pretty doesn't win races. And I've seen that over and over. I've seen a lot of people's port work. And what I can say exclusively is pretty port work never, from what I have seen, never has it won a race or lost a race. It's either pretty or it's not. I've never seen a port job that was so much faster because it was pretty. I mean, I'm thinking of one saw specifically that I saw. And it was blazing fast. I mean, like ridiculously fast. And then I saw the port work. And yeah, looked like a 5-year-old with the Dremel did it. So, and then you have these full-on racing cylinders, you know, that I have. This right here, I can't tell you what it's from and everything, but, and I don't want to get too much of a close-up. I don't want people to see what was done because this is secretive stuff. The reality is this stuff looks like crap. I mean, terrible crap. Terrible. It's awful. It's embarrassing. It's so ugly. It won races. It won races. So all of you guys out there that think that your ports have to be pretty, that's fine. Make them pretty. Enjoy it. Do it your way. I'm not telling you not to. But one thing that I will say is don't judge somebody else's port work based on if it's pretty or not. Judge their port work by putting that saw in the wood. My 2152 Johnson Red, I sold the piston and cylinder off of that to one of you viewers, all right? And I'm quite certain that whenever he got it, he saw that piston and was like, what? You know, because the piston had tiny scratches all over it. All over it. And what that's from is me, obviously I left a few little burrs all over it. Something. But the scratches were so small that you couldn't even feel them. They were just visually there. They were like rubs. But I was like, you know what? That thing ran like a scalded dog. I am not buying him a new piston to pretend anything. I'm sending this right here. And if he wants to say anything about it, he's more than willing, I mean, he can say something all he wants. That's fine. But I would just say, my comment back would be like, put it on the saw and run it. You know, because pretty does not equal fast. You can have fast stuff that's pretty, but it's not needed. Anyways, there you go.